leaders in their fields that are joining us today. We have Patrick Leary. Pat Leary is the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction at Upper Freehold Regional School District. Yeah, Upper Freehold, you better clap for him is what he told me before. We also have Allie Hyde, Math Interventionist, Upper Freehold. We have Jeannie, is it Leister? Ooh, Jeannie Leister, the Math Interventionist from Upper Freehold. Funny story about those two, when Manu introduced me to them, he talked about them for like 3 months straight, and he always said, Allie, Jeannie, and I legit thought that was the same person. So when they both saw me last year and enjoyed thinking, they're like, oh, Allie and Jeannie. So, and then we have Adrienne Gold, Director of Secondary and Curriculum at Toms River Regional School District. And Rich Fastnacht, who is the Director of Funding Programs from Toms River Regional School District. When you hear mathematical fluency mean in your school, and how has that definition evolved over your long time as an administrator?
So I think generally speaking, when we talk with teachers, I'll talk to teachers K through 12 because I'm part of all the schools in our district. And when we think about fluency, they often talk about math facts. I hear math facts are our second graders don't know math facts, our fifth graders don't know math facts, our sixth and seventh and eighth graders, they don't know math facts. So I think when we start to talk about fluency and start to make it bigger than just math facts, and start to think about how we work with numbers and how we work with operations and how we work with larger complex tasks, then I think we get into some more conceptual and representational understanding of mathematics, and it becomes more relevant to teachers when we start to talk about conceptual understanding and start to talk about like that CRA model. But I think at first we have to get beyond just the math facts piece. Not that that's not important, it certainly is. So we've been really working with our teachers on the CRA model and really starting to get them to understand that the conceptual understanding piece and the representational piece, that they're not just strategies. Often if we think of the abstract, that, okay, if the kid has the abstract, then we don't have to focus in on the concrete and the representational, but that they're not strategies, they're musts, because then sometimes we undermine the overall understanding of mathematics. So I think getting past the math fact piece with fluency, and that it's a much larger issue, then allows us to get into some more deeper instructional components.
And Adrienne, I want to come to you with something that's very similar, within the secondary realm, because oftentimes we talk fluency, it's very elementary driven, right? So in the secondary realm, like, what are you seeing, what are you hearing from teachers when they talk fluency? Is it similar to what Rich just said, or are there some other like nuances?
I would say it's similar, but I would say that the understanding about what fluency isn't quite as deep. What we've tried to do is try to build some vertical articulation, because I think understanding the math trajectories, and we talked before how repeated addition leads to multiplication, and some of those pieces that our algebra teachers aren't even sure how the students they have gotten their seats with the understanding, or some of the gaps that they have in their mathematical conceptual understanding. So we're at the beginning stages of really starting that process. I think as our team really gets the understanding of what this should look like, what should your classroom look like, it sound like, what are the teacher actions, we're really encouraging our building leaders to go in and look at what students are doing. So a lot of times we go in as leaders and look at what are the teachers doing in the lesson. And I think the important piece here and building this fluency part is, what are the students doing? What are they saying to each other? What are they grappling with? And I think also it's the productive struggle component, and building a comfortability in your classroom that kids are going to struggle. I think, as teachers, we want to see our students have success, and it gets a little messy. And I think the mess is where that fluency and that conceptual understanding really starts to build.
Pat, coming to you. When we first talked about this, you were talking about the journey that happened even before you guys became partners with us. Like, what were some of the misconceptions about fluency that not just teachers, because like we just heard from, about the teacher side of it, from like families and community members, like how did you have to shift some of their mindsets around what is fluency?
So when we first started this journey, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, to really change the mindset of our school, they thought that math fluency was just understanding facts as quickly as they could, right? Math minutes, 2 minutes, how many? And we really have changed that conversation to how accurately you can do as many as you can in whatever time we have, as compared to rushing through, right? Math anxiety was through the roof. I think kids were just not necessarily understanding. They were just trying to memorize everything. And then when we talk about they didn't understand second to third grade, third to fourth grade, the math facts weren't theirs because they were trying to memorize everything. And in the last couple of years, looking at more and celebrating successes of you got this many right compared to last week, has really made a huge difference right now. And this is not the only reason why our conversations, but if you walk in our building now, you will hear kids starting to get excited about math again and not shy away and say, I hate math. Math is not good. My parents hate math. They told me I'm not a good math student. And we've gotten away from that. And I'm not saying this is the only reason why, but not rushing through and really let them understand and make connections to those numbers. And if you take a look at our data over the last 3 to 4 years, our number sense data has really gone continuing to curve up in the right direction, where we've really struggled making that connection, try and think about what else do we need to do to make it work, because the teachers are working their butts off and not with no success or no success from the years prior. And in here we are really starting to see a lot of that. So that's been the biggest thing for us.
And Allie, coming to you, as a math interventionist, like you oftentimes work with students who struggle with mathematics a lot, maybe even see math as the enemy. How have you helped shift their mindsets around what fluency is and like the whole idea of being a math person?
Sure. So as an interventionist, I'm able to both be in the classroom at times and work with small groups outside of the classroom. And I think just creating tasks, games, activities where everyone has an entry point, and then we can build from there. So I think just kind of at that universal entrance for everyone. And I think that our students, since we've made some shifts in our programming and started working with Innovamat, my intervention students have an entry in the classroom. They don't shy away from trying to answer a question. They have a place where they belong and can feel strong, because our emphasis has shifted from just the right answer as quickly as possible to the discovery and the connections and the patterns and things like that.
And Jeannie, for you, with the same student population as Allie has, what were some of the like things that have shifted for you over the years working with them, where it's made it to where students start to see math in a different light, not just like from a mindset, but like how the approach, like how has your approach changed?
Well, prior to being an interventionist, I taught second and third grade for close to 20 years. And I was a good math student because I was a good memorizer. So I feel now I know so much more about how to teach children math better. But for many years, for sure, I taught the way that I learned and what I knew. So I think as my own journey of learning and understanding about math has shifted, that then has helped me shift with my students as well. So I think, like Allie said, they are coming in, I think, feeling much more comfortable at taking risks. We are seeing a huge growth with their number sense. So we're really able to build on and kind of expand that. And then they're carrying that into the classroom. And I think even when we're in the classroom, the conversation, the discussion that we're hearing the kids having shows already that they are thinking about things in a very different way and internalizing much more and understanding things and have a much deeper conceptual understanding. They can, but I think a lot of it connects directly to my own journey and how I've learned to do that things differently.
Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the changes that we definitely made was our approach to making math fun. So a lot of our math facts, instead of doing the math mad minutes, are card games against each other or board games against each other. And that making math fun, they still have to use their math facts to figure those things out. You just basic orchestrate games to create the goals and the number sense that you want to accomplish. So it's built in throughout the day. So it's not just relying on, hey, the first minute or 2 minutes of class. We're building that in throughout. And we've also had, I'm sure this is probably a question later on, and we'll repeat it, but we also had 3 years ago, we started Math Night, right? We're invited families, and in each year it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger to a point to where we're kind of sold out. So we have no more space to where we have the high school kids come down and help us out. But we set up rooms with the games that we play during the day so that they can then play them at home, so that there's a connection from us to home. And again, is everybody going to do it? No. But the more families that do this and incorporate this, it takes the screen time away. It builds family time. And as at the same time, they're learning some more math facts that of, because most of the parents are like, well, let's go to those flashcards and let's just go ahead and let's just go 2 times 3, 3 times 4. And in here, it's built into the games that we're playing, making math and game time at home a lot more fun. So just want to throw how else we're moving towards that math fluency piece.
No, that's perfect. Actually, it's a great segue to talking about leading change in practice. And Rich, coming back to you, what are some of the ways that you guys in your district engage the community, and things that have worked and maybe things that happen?
We also engage them in math nights, and then obviously regular communication. We use the Math Journeys program at an intervention level, so we have different opportunities for the community to come in and see exactly what's transpiring. We've moved to an enrichment period at our middle school level, and we've done a good job using an MTSS model to tier kids. And our whole thing when it comes to intervention is giving kids more time. So it's really allowed some of our most struggling learners to work with the Journeys program, work with the Innovamat material to get those gaps that are filled in, and the parents are very receptive to that, because it's not pulling them from their math class or pulling them from another core subject area that those kids desperately need. It's really a layered approach. So we really communicate that message out to our parents, and an opportunity for your kids to get the foundational skills that they so desperately need, but it's outside of their core block, because they also need those core math skills as well.
And Adrienne, coming to you, so oftentimes when we're leading change, one of the biggest barriers that we have is, and it's not anybody in this room because you're all unplugged, right, Mike? But one of the biggest barriers we have is honoring mistakes, where oftentimes, traditionally speaking, that we see mistakes in math class and then it's like punitive. So can you talk about some of the shifts that you guys have had to try to help teachers see that mistakes are valued and honored? And did you do trainings, or how does that help with the teachers?
Sure, that's one of the main focuses of PD that we've had for quite a few years is working with teachers as students work through multiple ways to solve, discussing different strategies with one another, providing sentence frames for students to be able to use to even introduce the kind of language that you would, have in a mathematical discussion. But I think I mentioned that earlier. I think that's one of the most uncomfortable things about the whole process, is that students have to grapple with the math a little bit and take a concept and apply it in a way that maybe they never have before. I think also, the fluency is really giving them access to some of that higher level of thinking. And when they lack some of that fluency, as we see in our classrooms, students have a difficult time getting to that higher level of reasoning. So we're really trying to level the playing field of making sure that we're encouraging teachers to give them that safe space to practice and make mistakes in the classroom. And there's a time for assessment, but we need to go through that process to make sure students have the opportunity to explore math, make mistakes in a safe place, and then accuracy is a different component of the process.
Going to Allie. So with this idea of supporting teachers, and even in your roles as math interventionists, what role has coaching, collaborative planning, or professional learning played in helping teachers or yourselves develop students' fluency more intentionally?
Well, that's a great question.
You can do Allie Jeannie if you want.
Allie Jeannie. We're a little codependent, the two of us. So as interventionists, we are fortunate enough that our administration gives us some flexibility to extend outside of our role a little bit. So we have had the opportunity and the time to create those relationships with our teachers, so that little bits of coaching that we can offer them hopefully will help. But you teachers have no time, and it's so hard. Our teachers were so fantastic when we rolled out a new program. We adopted Innovamat, and then the following year they adopted a new language arts program, and so their heads were spinning. So I think we really try to respect the bandwidth of our teachers. And just like you would with your students, there are some students who are ready, and then there are some students who need a little more time. And so we try to approach our teachers the same way. And in a perfect world, their teams would have all the planning time in the world, and time to visit each other's classrooms and be able to go to PD because there are so many substitutes available. But, we have to also deal in reality. Our school did make some room in their schedule to incorporate GLP time, which is just time for the grade level to plan, and we share that with language arts. But I think hopefully that creates a little bit more space where our teachers just have some time to talk about what's going on in the classroom and talk about what's working and what's not working.
Jeannie, you want to add anything?
No, I just would reiterate, I think it's really important to be aware of what is on your teacher's plates, and to try, even I've been out of the classroom for years, but I try to really remember what they are experiencing and dealing with and going through all the time, especially elementary school teachers, because you have so much coming down on you, and our teachers have had so many new initiatives. So I think you have to try to just really be mindful of that and remember where they are. And I would also just add, not as a plug for Innovamat, but the PD that we have received as part of adopting that curriculum, I think has been truly invaluable. So the first year we had some coaching sessions with Albert, and I think the learning that we were able to see and experience within ourselves and within our staff has had a huge impact, obviously, on how our children are doing. But I think finding time, it always comes back to time, but finding time for teachers to really have those PD opportunities that are meaningful and valuable, I think is really important.
Moving into the final phase, the culture, coherence, and sustainability. I'm actually going to go to Adrienne first. So what were some of the structures or routines that have helped keep math improvement efforts coherent across grade levels?
So we started with some really very structured PLC models where we looked at multiple data points to try and figure out where some of our foundational gaps were across grade levels. We tried to come up with some tier 1 strategies. So we really tried to follow an MTSS approach to start of what did we notice that almost all students really lacked an understanding in, and how could we get that to students 10 minutes a day. And from there, we started to build out an MTSS model where we were able to target specific needs of students. Like Rich said, we're using the Journeys intervention component of Innovamat. And I think that has really been amazing, and that we were able to give students, especially for me at the middle school level, grade agnostic support in areas that really impacted their fluency at foundational levels. And we knew we couldn't send these students up to high school without filling some of these gaps ahead of time. So, I think investing in our staff, like I think teachers, as Rob had said, I think they're the hugest change makers in moving math education, right? So investing as much time and PD in working with teachers and building their capacity to understand conceptually math trajectories is one of the most important things to us.
Jeannie, coming back to you. And then Allie is going to be coming to you right after this, just so you know. So as interventionists, you're more on the front lines with the teachers. How important is school culture, and how was the school culture cultivated to where hey, we're going to make this shift in fluency?
I think it's obviously extremely important. I think we were really lucky because there was another woman along with Allie who started to help. I think our teachers, myself included, because I was in the classroom at the time, realized that we needed to start to make that shift in our thinking about math. So I think it really does come down to the teachers and making sure the teachers are invested in that and understanding that. And so it was a slow shift, but I think you need that in order to have buy-in. And so over time, I think we continued to build on that. And most of the teachers were at a place where they were really ready to receive something very new and different and very open to that. And so I think from there, we just continued to build on that. And with the students, the more we value their flexibility and how they're solving problems and hearing the discussions and celebrating what they're doing in the classroom, then that continues to build throughout the school as well.
I wanted to add also, and again, not to plug Innovamat, although we are very happy with the program, those incremental changes that we were making, just kind of in like our thoughts around math, the last piece that we were missing was a program, because we could attend all kinds of PD, but and at the end of the day, you want something you can take back to your classroom, right? And so that was the piece really that we were missing, because we were using a different program and trying to make adjustments and shifts to it, and it just was a lot to ask our teachers to do. So having that final piece just kind of clicked everything into place for us. And do we still have room to grow? Absolutely, 100%. But our teachers have grown so much, and we're so proud of them, because they're the ones really that are carrying the burden of helping the students, right? So I think just having that other piece of having like a program that works along with all the other shifts that we are trying to make.
The final question for me is going to go to Pat, then Rich. You have the final say. You're the first say, you're on the final say. If you're advising a school that's just beginning this journey, what's one leadership move you would prioritize and one you would avoid?
It definitely was a journey, right? So if we go back 5 years ago, we knew we needed to make a change. If we look at, I've been here for 22 years, not necessarily in the seat, but in the district. And it didn't matter. Year after year after year, the same test results, you could just swap out the same 20 or 25%, and that's exactly what we got, almost to the number. And we didn't do anything to challenge our top kids other than we call it ALM, advanced level math, or our foundations, and we did the basic skills, but yet they didn't make any progress, and our kids just ended up in the same top and middle group just stayed as well. But with that math workshop, with the thought process that we needed to look and do something differently and start attending different PDs and change our mindset, the flexibility thinking and making our teachers that were vulnerable, because they had the same thought process of like, well, I don't like to teach math. That's why I spend 3 hours teaching language arts. And then I'll teach science and social studies, and whatever I have left, I'll teach for math. We needed to change that culture. So, the way we want our kids to be vulnerable and in their flexible thinking and try things and say, well, that gives the teachers an opportunity, one, to what is their thought process and how they're approaching this? And then two, it gave the teachers an opportunity to show the kids, you know what? I might not know it either, okay? Like some of those problems that we did earlier, like we can give those to the kids, and the kids will maybe not that level, but to the same point, it's like, well, you know what? I'm going to do this with you. And we may or may not get it right, but it's the thought process and the process of going through it. They didn't have to know all the answers. So I think that would prioritize that those discussions have to happen first. You just can't walk in here and say, we're going to evaluate these 5 programs. You're going to end up very similar to end up with the program you currently have unless you start those discussions. So I would prioritize that. The thing that we didn't do that I would say that we should have done earlier is invite the parents, right? So we made a comment up here that we went back-to-back years with language arts and math. I've already changed that 5-year cycle so that it will never happen again. But for the last 10 years, we were in Readers, Writers, and Workshop. We were in the math program. We didn't make any changes 5 years ago. So it didn't hit us and it didn't notify us. Well, now we needed to make 2 major changes, and they happen to be back-to-back years. And I did not invite the parents in early enough. We waited until more towards the end of the process, and then we were going to bring them in October. And by that time, for us, going with a mathematical company that was unheard of to the United States, that there was not a curriculum out of the box type thing, was a problem for us and the board. As much as I had my educational committee and worked through all of that, they were on board, but there was when I say a lot, there's the same 15, 20% that's going to talk. And though that was the group that we should have approached, in all honesty, to tell them of what we've been doing for the last 5 years in our journey. And instead we waited till the end of October. And that was, we had to go back and do a little bit of fixing. And now I think if you take a look at it, we have very few families that are arguing over how where we are right now. So I think that's helped us in the process, that the results have been better. The kids are talking about math successfully. They're happy about where we are. So I think all of those little things, but certainly I would have somehow involved the parents much sooner in the process. And so I learned when we did the CKLA, when we brought in our new language arts program, I made sure that they were in the front side of that, so that anything we needed to do, we were on the front side. So we did learn, just with a different subject area, but those are the priority, and then something that where our mistake was, and hopefully not to do it again. So.
Rich, same question.
No, I think the same thing, right? So I don't think there's any surprises when you're going through this process, or you don't want to have any surprises. So you want staff and you want stakeholders to be able to identify there's a problem and that there's a need for change. Adrienne talked about PLCs. We believe in professional learning communities that there's this never-ending cycle, right? We're always looking at data. We're looking to see how we could improve, how we can get better. The one thing we know about teachers and the one thing we know about all parents is that they want to see their students be successful. Right. So I think that opens the door. And then as a group and a committee, you think about an approach like, how do we want to teach mathematics? How do we want to teach reading? What's our belief? Do we believe in the science of reading? You mentioned CKLA, we also implement. But it's all those things. And then you start to look for research-based programs that you could get your hands on, and your teachers could have your hands on. You go through the piloting process. So, there might be some people along the way that may not be happy with it, but there's really no surprise. Like we all had an idea that this is the direction we were moving in, and there was a process behind it, and then everybody's able to kind of move forward. So I think the thing you want to avoid, you want to avoid surprises for any stakeholder group, and then you want teachers to be a part of the process and really vet the programs and get research-based materials into teachers' hands that fit your philosophy. It's great to do the things that we're doing up here today, but if teachers don't have those tangible resources in their hand for them to be able to implement, then it's never going to move forward any of our initiatives. So you want to have really good products in staff's hands, and then you can move forward and hold everybody accountable to the use of those programs.
And with that wraps up our panel. Give them a round of applause.